stories. If you love jaw-dropping HOA drama, you're in the right place. From corrupt board members to outrageous neighborhood disputes, we expose the wildest HOA scandals. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. Now, let's dive into today's crazy HOA.
I stood frozen, my heart hammering in my chest. There was a bright red X spray painted across my backyard fence. Below it, in bold letters, HOA development site. I blinked, hoping it was some kind of sick joke. But it wasn't. My land, my property, was marked as if it no longer belonged to me. Then I heard the rumble of an engine. I turned just in time to see a bulldozer creeping toward my fence, its metal blade raised high, ready to strike. I ran forward, waving my arms. Stop. This is my land. But the driver didn't stop. Crash! The wooden fence shattered like matchsticks. My backyard, the place where my father and I built a garden from nothing, was under attack. That's when I knew the HOA wasn't just after my land. They were going to take it by force. 3 months earlier, it all started with a single letter. I found in my mailbox, printed on official-looking HOA stationery. Notice of property adjustment. It read. Inside, the message was clear. Your land has been identified as a potential extension for community development. Please contact us to discuss relocation options. Relocation? My stomach turned. I owned this land outright. No mortgage, no liens. And yet, the HOA, the same organization I had refused to join, was acting as if it belonged to them. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I marched straight to the HOA office, letter in hand. I wasn't prepared for what happened next. The receptionist barely looked up. Oh, that's not a mistake. Your property is being absorbed into the HOA's jurisdiction. Absorbed? I clenched my fists. That's impossible. My land was never part of the HOA. She shrugged. It is now. That's when I knew they weren't asking. They were taking. And I wasn't going to let them. I stormed out of the HOA office, my mind racing. They couldn't just absorb my land. That wasn't how property worked. I needed proof, something that showed my property had nothing to do with the HOA. At home, I dug through my old files. Property deed, survey reports, tax records. Everything was in my name. No mention of the HOA anywhere. I had legal proof. Armed with my documents, I returned to the HOA office the next morning. This time, I wasn't leaving until I got answers. The receptionist barely glanced at my papers before sliding a different document across the counter. This overrides that. I stared at it. A new zoning map. And my land? It was shaded in HOA blue. What the hell is this? I demanded. She smirked. A revision. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. They'd altered the official zoning records. And just like that, the battle had begun. I wasted no time. That afternoon, I sat across from a lawyer, a middle-aged man named Ethan Monroe, who specialized in property disputes. He scanned my documents, then sighed. This isn't just shady. It's illegal. I exhaled in relief. So I can sue them, right? He hesitated. Yes, but he tapped the HOA zoning revision. If they got this through the county, it's going to be an uphill battle. It means someone on the inside is helping them. I stiffened. Corruption. Ethan leaned forward. If they're this bold, they're not going to stop at paperwork. What do you mean? He folded his hands. They're going to try and make your life hell until you give up. I swallowed hard. Then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed. Subject. Immediate action required. I opened it and my stomach dropped. Due to zoning adjustments, your property is scheduled for mandatory inspection and compliance review. Failure to comply may result in legal action. I looked up at Ethan. They're coming for me. He nodded grimly. And they're not going to play fair. An email from the HOA. I barely had time to process the email before a loud knock rattled my front door. I glanced at my phone. 9:02 a.m. They weren't wasting time. I yanked the door open. 3 men in HOA uniforms stood on my porch. clipboards in hand, smug expressions on their faces. The one in the center, a tall, wiry guy with graying hair, smirked. "Mr. Carter, we're here for your compliance inspection." I crossed my arms. "You don't have the authority to inspect my property." He held up a sheet of paper, signed by the HOA board, effective immediately. I snatched it from his hand and scanned it. Bull. Nothing but vague legal jargon about community compliance and property standard evaluations. I shoved it back at him. "I don't recognize your authority. My land isn't part of your HOA." He let out a slow chuckle. "Then I guess we'll have to escalate this." Without another word, he turned his clipboard and started writing. Violation number 1, unauthorized fencing structure. Violation number 2, improper lawn maintenance. Violation number 3, unapproved exterior color. My jaw clenched. They were making this up. I stepped forward, blocking their view of my house. "You're trespassing. Get off my property." The wiry man tapped his pen against the clipboard. "We'll leave when we're done." I pulled out my phone. "Then I'm calling the cops." That got their attention. The smug look faltered for just a second, but instead of backing down, he smirked. "Go ahead. We'll be sure to let them know you're obstructing a legal HOA inspection." I clenched my fists. They were setting me up, but they weren't prepared for what I did next. I turned on my phone's camera. "Say that again. This time for the recording." The 3 men stiffened. The wiry guy's smirk disappeared. "Turn that off." I stepped closer, holding the camera up. "You just admitted that you're inspecting private property without consent. Go on. Tell me how the HOA thinks they own my land." Silence. The 2 men behind him shuffled uncomfortably. One even took a step back. They hadn't expected me to fight back. I wasn't just some clueless homeowner. I was documenting everything. The wiry man exhaled sharply. "We're filing these violations. Expect a formal notice soon." And with that, they left. But I knew this wasn't over. They'd tried the legal route. Next, they'd try something worse. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing nonstop. I groggily reached for it. 15 missed calls, all from my neighbors. Confused, I pulled on a hoodie and stepped outside. And that's when I saw it. A giant neon orange sign planted right in my front yard. Notice of violation. Pending fines and legal action. Owner, Carter family. Status, non-compliant. Below it, in smaller print, failure to address these issues may result in property seizure. Seizure. I ripped the sign out of the ground, my hands shaking with rage. This was a scare tactic. And judging by the way my neighbors whispered from their driveways, it was working. An older woman, Mrs. Thompson, hesitated before stepping toward me. "Carter, what's going on?" "The HOA says your land wasn't properly registered." I clenched my jaw. "That's a lie." She frowned. "Then why would they say that? Why would they put up a sign like that?" I sighed. That was the game. The HOA wasn't just coming after me. They were turning my own neighborhood against me. Sure enough, my neighbor Dave, who always waved at me in the mornings, refused to make eye contact. And Mrs. Lee, who once gave me cookies during the holidays, hurried inside the second she saw me. They were afraid. Afraid that if they stood with me, they'd be next. And that's exactly what the HOA wanted. But I wasn't going to let them win. If they wanted a war, I'd give them one. I grabbed my laptop and started digging. I needed to find out exactly how deep this corruption ran. I spent hours combing through county records, HOA documents, and legal cases. And then I found it. A pattern. The HOA had done this before to 5 other homeowners. All 5 fought back. All 5 mysteriously violated community standards until they were forced to sell. And guess what? Every single one of their properties ended up in the hands of a private real estate firm. A firm owned by none other than the HOA president. Bingo! I leaned back, heart pounding. This wasn't just about me. It was a full-blown land grab. And now that I knew their secret, I wasn't just fighting back for myself. I was going to expose everything. I stared at my laptop screen, my pulse pounding. The HOA president wasn't just enforcing rules. He was running a real estate scam. And I had proof. 5 homeowners. All forced out. 5 properties. All bought by the same shady real estate firm. A firm that, as I dug deeper, had one major investor. Nathan Holloway. The HOA president himself. He wasn't enforcing community rules. He was stealing land and flipping it for a profit. I needed to act fast, but I wasn't stupid. Going against the HOA alone was dangerous. So I made a call. To my surprise, Ethan Monroe, my lawyer, picked up on the first ring. "Carter," he said, "I was hoping you'd call." That stopped me. "Hoping? You knew?" I asked. He sighed. "I had my suspicions. Your HOA has been pulling this scheme for years. But nobody's ever gathered enough evidence to take them down." I glanced at my laptop. "Well, I just did." Silence. Then Ethan said, "Meet me at my office in an hour. And Carter, be careful. If the HOA finds out what you have, they'll come for you." I hung up, grabbed my laptop, and hurried out the door. I had no idea I was already too late. I pulled into Ethan's parking lot, gripping my laptop like it was a loaded weapon. This was my smoking gun. But as I stepped out of my car, a strange feeling crept over me. Something was wrong. I turned, scanning the lot. Was someone watching me? Then, a vibration in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. "Nice laptop. Would be a shame if it went missing." My blood ran cold. I wasn't just exposing the HOA. They already knew. I stare at my phone, my heart pounding. "Nice laptop. Would be a shame if it went missing." I whipped my head around. Who sent this? Was someone watching me? The parking lot looked empty, but I knew better. I wasn't alone. Ethan's office was just a few steps away. I had to move fast. I gripped my laptop tighter and sprinted to the door. Locked. I knocked hard. "Ethan, open up." Footsteps inside. Then the door flew open. Ethan's eyes widened when he saw my face. "Carter, what?" I pushed past him and slammed the door shut. "They know." His face darkened. "What do you mean?" I held up my phone. The text message. Ethan scanned it, then cursed under his breath. "Damn it, they're watching you." I nodded, trying to catch my breath. "Which means they'll do anything to stop me." He set his jaw. "Then we make the first move." Ethan pulled out his laptop and motioned for me to sit. "Show me what you found." I opened my laptop and brought up the files. 5 homeowners. Forced out. Properties flipped to a real estate firm, one that's owned by Nathan Holloway. Ethan's expression turned grim. "And the county approved these sales?" I nodded. "Someone on the inside had to help. There's no way these violations were legitimate." Ethan leaned back. "This is enough to launch an investigation. But we need to be smart." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He exhaled. "The HOA has money, power, connections. If we go straight to the county, they could bury this before it even sees daylight." A sinking feeling settled in my gut. "Then what do we do?" Ethan's lips curled into a smirk. "We go public." My eyes widened. "You mean?" He nodded. "We leak everything. Social media, local news. Once the public knows, the HOA won't be able to hide." It was risky, but it was our best shot. I was about to agree when my phone buzzed again. Another text. "You have 24 hours to drop this, or you'll lose more than just your land." I gripped my phone so tight my knuckles turned white. "You have 24 hours to drop this, or you'll lose more than just your land." I swallowed hard. This wasn't just intimidation anymore. It was a direct threat. Ethan read over my shoulder, his expression darkening. "They're scared." "Yeah." I muttered. "So am I?" He shook his head. "No, listen. If they're sending you threats, it means they know you have something dangerous. Something that could ruin them." I exhaled slowly, my mind racing. "So, what do we do?" "Call the cops." Ethan hesitated. "We could. But the moment we do, the HOA's lawyers will get involved, and they'll try to spin this against you." I groaned, rubbing my temples. They had me trapped. If I stayed quiet, they'd win. If I fought back, they'd come after me harder. But then Ethan leaned in. His eyes were sharp, calculating. Unless we make them think they've already lost. I frowned. How? A slow smirk crept across his face. We set a trap. Ethan pulled out his phone. We're going to leak just enough information to make them panic. Not the full story, just a taste. Enough to make them slip up. I nodded slowly, catching on. And if they react, we'll have more proof they're guilty. Exactly. I took a deep breath. It was risky, but what choice did I have? Ethan typed out a message. Corrupt HOA caught stealing land. Exclusive details coming soon. He attached a blurred screenshot of the documents I'd found. Just enough to hint at something big. Then he hit post. I watched as the tweet started spreading. A few shares. A few likes. And then boom. The HOA president himself called my phone. I stared at the screen, my pulse pounding. Ethan grinned. Showtime. My phone vibrated in my hand. Nathan Holloway, the HOA president. I glanced at Ethan. What do I do? Ethan smirked. Answer it. Put him on speaker. I took a steadying breath and swiped to accept. Carter, Holloway's voice came through, smooth and composed. But I could hear the tension underneath. We need to talk. I forced a casual tone. Oh, about what? A pause. Then, you know exactly what. I smirked. He was rattled. Look, Carter, he continued. You're playing a dangerous game. That post? Spreading false information? That's defamation. I could sue you for everything you own. I leaned back in my chair, locking eyes with Ethan. This was it. You could, I said slowly, or you could explain why 5 homeowners mysteriously lost their properties to a firm you own. Silence. Then, his voice dropped to a growl. I don't know what you think you found, but you're in over your head. Ethan scribbled something on a notepad and slid it toward me. Keep him talking. He's scared. I smirked. You sound nervous, Nathan. His composure cracked. Listen to me, Carter. Take that post down. Now, or I promise you'll regret it. My pulse spiked, but I kept my voice steady. Regret it how? He didn't answer. Just hung up. The room went dead silent. Then Ethan exhaled and grinned. We got him. Ethan leaned forward. That call just proved everything. I nodded, my mind racing. But it also means they're desperate. If they couldn't threaten me into silence, they'll try something else. Ethan's smirk faded. Yeah, and I don't think they'll stop at just warnings. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again, a new text from an unknown number. Final warning. Back off, or you won't make it to your next post. A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't just about land anymore. This was a war. My hands trembled as I stared at the text. Final warning. Back off, or you won't make it to your next post. Ethan read over my shoulder and muttered a curse. They're not bluffing. I swallowed hard. This had gone from legal threats to something much worse. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't a text. It was my security camera app. Motion detected. I clicked the notification, and the live feed popped up. My stomach dropped. A dark SUV was parked outside my house. 2 men in hoodies stepped out. One carried a crowbar. The other had a canister. Gasoline. Ethan saw it too. Oh, hell no. I shot to my feet. They were going to destroy my house. Call the cops. I barked, sprinting for the door. Wait, Carter. Ethan yelled, but I was already outside, keys in hand. I wasn't about to let them burn my home to the ground. I screeched into my driveway just in time to see one of the men splash gasoline across my front porch. The other struck a match. Hey! I roared, slamming my door and charging toward them. The guy with the match froze, startled, but the one with the crowbar recovered fast. He turned toward me, raising the weapon. Too late. Adrenaline surged through me as I tackled him to the ground. The crowbar clattered onto the pavement. Carter! A voice shouted. Ethan. He had pulled up behind me, his phone pressed his ear. Cops are on their way. The second guy panicked, dropping the match. He bolted for the SUV, jumping in and peeling out my driveway. The one I had tackled struggled beneath me, but I had him pinned. His hoodie slipped back, revealing his face. My stomach twisted. I knew him. He was on the HOA board. I stared down at the man beneath me, my chest heaving. I knew him. He was on the HOA board. His name was Greg Dawson, the HOA's vice president, Nathan Holloway's right-hand man. His face twisted in panic as he struggled under my grip. Let me go. I tightened my hold. You were going to burn down my house. Behind me, Ethan jumped out of his car, phone still in hand. Cops are almost here, Carter. Greg's eyes widened in pure terror. Not anger, fear. He knew he was caught. But then, in a desperate move, he kneed me in the stomach. Pain exploded through my ribs. I lost my grip for a split second, just enough time. Greg scrambled to his feet and sprinted toward the street. No, you don't. Ethan lunged, but Greg was fast. He dove into the SUV's passenger seat. Tires screeched. The SUV sped off, vanishing into the night. I staggered to my feet, coughing. My house reeked of gasoline. Ethan cursed under his breath. They won't stop, Carter. They're not just covering up fraud anymore. They're trying to erase you. I wiped sweat from my forehead, my pulse still hammering. Then we hit them harder. Ethan narrowed his eyes. You got a plan? I turned toward my front door. The gasoline had soaked the wood. If I had been a minute later, my house would have been nothing but ashes. I clenched my fists. I wasn't running. I wasn't backing down. I was about to end the HOA once and for all. I stood on my front porch, staring at the gasoline stains soaking into the wood. They really tried to burn me out. Ethan stood beside me, his jaw clenched. Cops are on their way, but let's be real, this won't stop them. I exhaled slowly. He was right. Calling the cops wouldn't be enough. The HOA had money, connections, and influence. Even if Greg got arrested, Nathan Holloway would make this all disappear. I needed a plan that would make it impossible for them to cover this up. My fingers tightened into fists. We need to go public, but not just another leak. We need to expose everything all at once. Ethan's eyes lit up. Like a full-scale takedown? I nodded. Emails, documents, threats. We drop everything. And we don't just send it to the media. We make sure the entire town sees it. Ethan grinned. I like where this is going. The cops arrived minutes later, but just as we expected, they were useless. Greg and the other guy were long gone, and without video footage of their faces, the officers just took a report and promised to investigate. Translation: nothing would happen, but that was fine, because I was done playing defense. That night, Ethan and I sat at his office, laptops open, surrounded by stacks of documents, emails proving land theft, contracts exposing shady deals, threats from HOA members. It was all here. And when we were done, everyone would know. Ethan cracked his knuckles. Time to ruin some lives. We started typing. First, an email blast. Every news station, every resident, every business in town. We sent them everything. Next, social media. We posted screenshots, videos, leaked documents. We named names. And then the final blow. Ethan smirked and pressed send. A direct email to the county's district attorney. It was done. Now, all we had to do was wait. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. My phone was blowing up. Texts, emails, voicemails. I unlocked my screen and nearly dropped the phone. Thousands of notifications. Ethan burst into my living room, his face wild with excitement. Dude, it worked. I rubbed my eyes, still groggy. What? He tossed his phone onto the table. News headlines covered the screen. Breaking. HOA corruption scandal rocks local community. HOA president accused of land theft and intimidation. Leaked documents reveal HOA scheme to seize homeowners' properties. It was everywhere. Social media was on fire. People were furious. The town Facebook group had thousands of comments. Residents were tagging each other, sharing stories and demanding answers. And then, the biggest hit. A clip of Nathan Holloway arguing with a reporter outside his office. I turned up the volume. Mr. Holloway, what do you have to say about these allegations? Nathan looked pale. His usual smug confidence was gone. No comment, he muttered, pushing past the cameras. Ethan whistled. He's sweating. I smirked. Good. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Might be them. I answered. Hello. A deep breath. Then, Carter. It's Greg. My stomach clenched. Greg Dawson. The same guy who tried to burn my house down. He sounded different. Shaken. Desperate. I need to talk, he said quickly. In person. Ethan and I exchanged looks. A trap? But then Greg whispered something that made my blood run cold. I have proof. And if they find out I'm talking to you, I'm dead. I tightened my grip on the phone. What do you mean you're dead? Greg's voice was low, urgent. Holloway isn't just some corrupt HOA president. He has people. Dangerous people. If he finds out I'm talking to you, I'm finished. I glanced at Ethan. His face was tense, but he nodded. We had to hear him out. Fine, I said. Where? Greg hesitated. Not over the phone. Meet me at the old construction site. Tonight. Alone. I tensed. The scream trap? Ethan spoke up. No way. You're not going alone. I cover the mic. We'll bring backup. Just not where Greg can see them. Ethan grinned. Now you're thinking like a criminal. I returned to the call. Fine. Midnight. Don't be late. Greg exhaled. Just don't let Holloway see you. If he finds out, we're both dead. Click. The call ended. The construction site was dark, abandoned. Half-built houses stood like skeletons under the moonlight. Ethan and I arrived early. He stayed hidden in the car while I stepped into the open, waiting. A figure emerged from the shadows. Greg. He looked terrible, sweating jittery, like he hadn't slept in days. He glanced around nervously before rushing up to me. Listen, Carter, he whispered. I don't have much time. He pulled out a USB drive. This is everything. Asterisk, asterisk bank transfers, emails, signed agreements. Holloway's been running the scam for years. Stealing land, bribing officials, even asterisk, asterisk. A gunshot rang out. Greg's body jolted. For a second, he just stood there. Then he collapsed. My breath caught. Sniper. I dove for cover as another shot rang out, hitting the ground inches from my hand. Greg gasped, blood pooling beneath him. He shoved the USB drive into my hand, his grip weak. Expose him. His fingers went limp. Greg was dead. And I was next. Greg's lifeless eyes stared up at the night sky. Blood pooled beneath him, soaking into the dirt. He was dead, and the sniper was still out there. Crack! Another bullet tore into the wooden beam beside me. They weren't done. I bolted, sprinting to the half-built houses, zigzagging to avoid being an easy target. My heart pounded as I heard a car door slam in the distance. Ethan. Carter, move, he yelled. Tires screeched as his car skidded onto the gravel road. I pushed harder, legs burning, breath ragged. Another shot rang out, barely missing me. Then headlights. Ethan's car roared toward me. I didn't stop running. I jumped. Ethan yanked the door open, and I threw myself inside. Go! 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 I screamed. Ethan floored it. Bullets slammed into the trunk as we sped away. But we weren't just running. We had Greg's USB drive. And that meant the HOA was finished. We drove in silence for a while, hearts still pounding. Ethan finally spoke. This is a kill order, Carter. Holloway isn't just trying to scare you anymore. He wants you gone. I clenched my fists. Then we hit him where it hurts. I pulled out the USB drive, staring at it. Greg died for this. We don't go to the media this time, I said. Ethan frowned. Then where? I looked up. The FBI. I held the USB drive like it was a live grenade. This was it. The final piece of evidence that would bring Holloway and the entire corrupt HOA crashing down. Ethan's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel. We sure about this? Once we make this call, there's no turning back. I nodded. Greg died for this. We finished what he started. Ethan exhaled sharply. Then, without another word, he dialed FBI tip line. What's your report? I took the phone. I have evidence of organized crime, racketeering, and attempted murder involving my HOA. A pause. Then, a serious voice on the other end. Where can we meet? 2 days later, it all unraveled. The FBI set up a sting operation. We handed over Greg's USB. The data? Explosive. Illegal land grabs. Bribery of city officials. Emails ordering enforcement actions against homeowners who refused to comply. And worst of all, bank statements linking Nathan Holloway to offshore accounts. Millions of dollars stolen from the community. I stood across the street as federal agents swarmed the HOA headquarters. People were handcuffed. Files were seized. Nathan Holloway was dragged out in cuffs, screaming, "You think this is over? You have no idea who you're messing with." I just smiled. "Yeah, we do. That's why you're in handcuffs." Within a week, the entire HOA board resigned or was arrested. Nathan was charged with fraud, conspiracy, and attempted murder. His offshore accounts were frozen. And as for me, I kept my land. I kept my home. Ethan and I watched the news reports roll in, the town celebrating the downfall of the most corrupt HOA in the state. He grinned. "So what now?" I leaned back, finally able to breathe. Now, we rebuild. Without the HOA. The nightmare was over. Thanks for watching. Want more insane HOA stories? Like, comment, and subscribe.